In this video, we're going to discuss high-level planning and change requests. Now, as an example, when I first saw the PMBOK guide, I don't remember how many processes there were. My guess is high 30, maybe, 42 seems to come to mind. And I remember, let's just use 42 as a number because that was, if that wasn't it, it was it soon after. 42 is a lot of processes to try to remember all the details of, how they interact with each other, see the spaghetti about how they're all connected and things like that. And I don't by any means expect you to memorize how everything is connected because it's not always connected the same way. But this graphic is going to be extremely powerful. And there's some generalization here, and then there's some specific items. So the generalization is where you see X, like Plan X management, X process 1, 2, etc. And generally speaking, other than the monitor/control X, everything else is very specific. So I want to clarify here. We're going to walk through this. We're going to spend a bit of time just on this video itself. So Plan X management basically is a process name, gives me an X management plan. So put whatever word you want in there. Plan scope management, plan schedule management, plan cost management, plan resource management. You flip the words around. In almost all cases, it's going to give you a whatever management plan. So if safety was a knowledge area, plan safety management would give you a safety knowledge area. Now, there are a couple of exceptions, like scope gives you a scope and a requirements management plan. Resource gives you a resource management plan and a team charter. But the general rule, Plan X management gives you a management plan for how to do whatever the subject of X is. And in this case, it's related to knowledge areas. Another thing is stakeholder is not management, it's engagement. So plan stakeholder engagement would give you a stakeholder engagement plan. Now, one thing going on here is the whatever management plan is, so in this case, let's say scope. The scope management plan and plan scope management would tell me how to do my scope processes. So if I had, 3 more processes in planning that were part of scope, then it would be process, collect requirements, define scope, create WBS. So how many ever processes we have in planning related to that knowledge area? The management plan tells me how to do that. Ultimately, it tells me how to do any executing, monitoring, and controlling and closing processes for that particular subject. So to clarify, the scope management plan tells me how to do everything with scope. The schedule management plan tells me how to do everything with schedule, for example. Now, another thing that's going on here as we start to create these planning documents, our management plans become part of the overall project management plan, and our various planning documents become part of the overall project management plan. Now, from there, we get into directing and managing project work. That's the execution of the project management plan. Thus, the era going from develop project management plan to direct and manage project work. Now, here's where we're going to generalize just a little. So we were talking about scope to begin with as far as like plan scope management, etc. So in this case, coming out of direct and manage project work, where we create deliverables, if I were doing the control scope process, or if it were stakeholder, the monitor stakeholder engagement process, for example, monitor or control whatever the knowledge area name is, that creates, among other things, work performance information and change requests. So work performance information is information about where we're at with that, meaning are we in good shape, bad shape, do we need to make adjustments, what have you. And then change requests. Now change requests are things that are proposed. So like I have 2 teenagers and I'm a custodial dad of 2 teenagers. Teenagers are great at coming up with change requests. Now it doesn't mean we're going to do them, but they're great at coming up with them. So change requests are things that are being proposed. Now, if we think about that, whether it's control scope, schedule, cost, quality, resource, monitor communication, monitor risk, control procurement, monitor stakeholder engagement, any of that, a change request coming out of that is going to go into perform integrated change control, which is an integration process. It is my master overall change control process. So every process, every is an absolute. Every process that creates a change request, that change request goes into perform integrated change control. And in a perfect world, what comes out is an approved change. We're going to do this change. So there's 3 directions it could go among all 1,400 plus inputs, tools, techniques, and outputs. The main place it's probably going to go, if it just simply relates to the overall project, is direct and manage project work. Meaning an approved change gets factored into how you're executing the plan overall. Do more of something, less of something, test, build it a little different, things like that. Now, the other 2 places an approved change could go, if it relates to the contract, it's going to go into control procurements. So control procurements could potentially be used to factor in any approved changes as it relates to an overall contract. Like if you had a contract with an outside party that was doing something for you and you had an approved change request, then it would go into control procurements if it impacted the contract with that third party. And then the other space or spot it could go would be control quality. So if this were the case, it would typically be something related to testing. So like if the approved change said test more, test less, test differently, have somebody else test as well, what have you. And so that's a little of what's going on here. Like I said, Plan X management, planning, as far as X process 1, 2, 3, etc., and then monitor/control X. Those are very general, but they relate to all 10 knowledge areas, and then the rest of those things are very specific as far as the project management plan giving me, or develop project management plan giving me the project management plan, direct and manage project work giving me deliverables, approved changes coming out of perform integrated change control. That is the only process that can create an approved change. And then if it relates to the overall approach to the project, those approved changes go into direct and manage project work. If it relates to any contracts, it goes into control procurements, which is going to influence the contract. If it relates to testing, it's going to go into control quality, which could be test more, test less, test differently, what have you. So feel free to, we don't rewind so much anymore with video, but feel free to watch this a few times, kind of pause, digest, etc. A couple of weeks ago, I taught a 4-day class, and this had been percolating around in my head for the last, 7 to 10 years, and I would try to explain it in class, and everybody being virtual live, I started putting some stuff together in PowerPoint, and by the time the dust settled, it wasn't quite this pretty, but it was effectively this functional. So, and the class said it was very powerful in helping them get their arms around kind of the big picture flow of how a number of these things work together. So anyway, hopefully that helps you. Feel free to subscribe and watch other videos we have as well. Thank you.